Welcome to Spiritual Foundations for Life. This is day number 337. What if I could get you to believe something about God or about yourself that wasn't true? Would that have some negative effect in your life? Well, of course it would. Now, what if I got you to believe a group of lies, a number of lies? The more lies you believed, the more I could influence your life until your whole life started to unravel. And that is exactly what is happening all around the world today. So what can we do about all of this negative bombardment? And how does this relate to our understanding of strongholds? 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 5 says, "We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." The word thought in the original Greek is noema. The word is used only 6 times in the Bible, and 4 of them are actually in 2 Corinthians. The first occurrence is in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. "If you forgive anyone, I also forgive him. And what I have forgiven, if there is anything to forgive, I have forgiven in the sight of Christ for your sake, in order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes." That word schemes is the same word, noema. Satan's schemes are Satan's thoughts. There are Satan's thoughts or designs or purposes against us. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 3 and 4, "And if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God." That word minds is the same word, noema. Satan has blinded the minds or the thinking of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 3 says, "But I am afraid that just as Eve was deceived by the serpent's cunning, that your minds may somehow be led astray from your sincere and pure devotion to Christ." Well, that word minds is the same word. Satan wants to deceive Christians by leading their minds or their thinking away from sincere and pure devotion to Christ. In every case so far, the word noema is about spiritual deception. And it is all essentially all coming from the enemy. And we are seeing this all over the world where people's minds are being deceived by Satan. What does the secular world do with all of this evidence? Well, they say, well, it's chemical imbalance. That's why you're thinking those thoughts. It's chemical imbalance. But we have every right to ask a legitimate question. Would you explain to me how a chemical imbalance can produce a personality or a thought? Or can you explain to me how my neurotransmitters could randomly fire and create a thought that I'm actually opposed to thinking? What is your natural explanation for that? Well, there isn't one. But they will say, well, I gave you some antipsychotic medications to that person and the voices stopped. In other words, the doctors gave them a drug, a narcotic, and because there's no way to precisely measure brain chemistry, the doctors keep trying to manipulate those 40 plus neurotransmitters, and it's scary to realize that the doctors are experimenting on people's brains like that. So the doctors keep giving them different narcotics, but that is exactly why so many people take drugs and drink. In many cases, they don't have any mental peace because of all the voices in their minds, and so they take drugs to try to silence their thoughts, just like the doctors are trying to do with people who hear voices. But the truth of the matter is that the problem is spiritual. And so there is a spiritual answer so that people can resolve it. Now, please don't misunderstand me. If you have a physical problem with your body and you feel that you need to take a pill to cure your body, well, that's fine. But don't waste your time trying to take a pill to cure your soul. It just won't work. Thank God for the medical profession and all the insight that they can bring to us. But if we have a spiritual problem, it can be only dealt with spiritually. Our key point today is if we have a spiritual problem, it can only be dealt with spiritually. And our key verse is 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. "But I'm afraid that just as Eve was deceived by the serpent's cunning, that your minds, that your thinking may somehow be led astray from your sincere and pure devotion to Christ. Please join me tomorrow again for another episode of Spiritual Foundations for Life.